human gave his last meal to an alien family, and their unexpected gratitude changed his life forever. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Jake had always lived a quiet, ordinary life in a small town, tucked away from the bustle of the bigger cities. He wasn't wealthy, nor did he crave fame. He worked as a mechanic, spending most of his days fixing cars and trucks, barely making ends meet. But despite his struggles, Jake had something that set him apart. A heart full of kindness. He didn't mind that he didn't have much. What mattered most to him was making sure that those around him, even strangers, had enough. It was a cold evening when everything changed. Jake had just finished a long day of work. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten all day. Pulling a half-eaten sandwich from his bag, he sat on a bench by the park, the icy wind cutting through his jacket. As he took his last bite, he noticed something strange. A family of aliens huddling under a nearby tree, looking tired and hungry. They appeared to be lost, with no obvious destination. They looked exhausted, their skin pale from the cold, and their eyes wide with desperation. Without hesitation, Jake stood up and walked over to them. "Hey, are you guys okay?" he asked, his voice soft but concerned. The alien father, a tall figure with silvery skin, looked up at him in surprise. He didn't expect any help. "We're fine," he replied, though his voice was laced with uncertainty. But Jake wasn't buying it. He knew what hunger looked like, and it was written all over their faces. Without another word, he handed them his sandwich, even though it was the only food he had left. "Here," Jake said. "You look like you could use this more than I do." The alien family stared at the sandwich, then at Jake. For a moment, they didn't understand. They had never encountered such kindness from a stranger before. The father hesitated before taking the food from Jake's hands, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. He slowly passed it to his children, who looked just as confused but grateful. The mother, her skin shimmering like the surface of a calm lake, spoke softly. "Why would you give us your food? You don't even know us." Jake smiled, his eyes reflecting a warmth that seemed to soften the cold night around them. "It's the right thing to do," he said. "No one should go hungry, no matter where they're from." They ate quietly, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down. Jake stood off to the side, letting them finish, feeling good about his decision. He didn't expect anything in return, but as the family finished their meal, something unexpected happened. The alien father looked up at him, a look of deep respect in his eyes. "We owe you more than just our gratitude," he said. The alien mother nodded in agreement, her voice full of emotion. "You've given us more than food. You've given us hope." Jake, still not fully understanding what they meant, shrugged it off, thinking it was just the kindness they were returning. "It was nothing," he said modestly. But the alien father wasn't done. "We come from a faraway place," he began. "We have technologies that could change your life. You've shown us a kindness we've never known before. And for that, we would like to repay you." Jake felt a sudden chill run through him. He wasn't sure how to respond. He wasn't interested in technology or any material things. He had what he needed, a good heart and the ability to make a difference in someone's life. But he couldn't deny the sincerity in their eyes. Little did Jake know, this simple act of kindness would set in motion a series of events that would forever change his life. What started with a sandwich ended with a powerful connection that would lead to opportunities he never dreamed possible. And as he walked away from that night, he realized something important. No good deed goes unnoticed, and sometimes, the smallest gestures can change everything. As Jake walked away from the small park, the weight of what had just happened seemed to sink in. He couldn't shake the image of the alien family, how their eyes had softened with gratitude, how they had looked at him as if he had just given them something far more valuable than food. He didn't understand why it meant so much to them, but he knew that something significant had changed in that moment. The quiet town he had always called home suddenly felt smaller, more isolated, as if the whole world had just expanded before him. That night, as Jake sat in his small apartment, he thought about his life. He had always been content, always believed that doing the right thing was enough. But something about the alien's gratitude made him wonder if there was more he could be doing. If his small gestures of kindness could mean something bigger than he ever imagined. The next morning, just as Jake was finishing up his breakfast, a knock on the door startled him. It was early, and he wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, he was greeted by the sight of the alien father, his tall, silver-skinned form standing in the doorway, looking more dignified than the night before. "Jake," the alien said, his voice softer but filled with purpose. "We've come to speak with you." Jake blinked in surprise. "I didn't expect." "You didn't expect us," the alien interrupted, "but we owe you more than thanks." He stepped aside to reveal the rest of the family behind him. The alien mother, Thyla, stood close by, her skin glowing faintly in the morning light, while Tala, the young daughter, looked up at Jake with a mixture of curiosity and awe. They were all there, gathered in his doorway, and it was clear they weren't leaving until they had said what they came to say. "I don't understand," Jake began, stepping aside to let them in. "I just gave you some food." "Food is a small thing," the alien father said, his gaze steady. "But the kindness you showed us, it is more than you realize." Jake led them inside and motioned for them to sit. His apartment was modest, but they seemed to settle in, taking the space with a quiet respect. "I'm not sure I understand," Jake said again, sitting across from them. "Why does it matter so much to you? I didn't do anything extraordinary." Thyla smiled, though there was a sadness in her eyes. "To you it may seem small, but to us, your gesture means more than words can describe. We have traveled far, and we have faced much hardship. We've never known kindness like this before." The alien father nodded. "We are not like you. We do not share your way of thinking. But what you did, without expecting anything in return, is something we honor." Jake didn't know what to say. He felt overwhelmed by their gratitude, unsure how to respond. Tala, the daughter, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. "We can offer you something in return," she said, her voice soft but firm. Jake looked at her, confused. "What could you offer me? I didn't do this for anything in return." Tala smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "You have no idea how much we can offer," she said. "We come from a place where technology and knowledge are far beyond what you know. We can help you, Jake. We can give you a future you never imagined." Jake's heart skipped a beat. "I don't need anything from you," he said, though he could feel the weight of their words pressing on him. The alien father looked at him, his gaze piercing. "You don't understand. Your kindness has already earned you more than you realize. You've given us something we can never repay, but perhaps we can help you with something you didn't know you needed." Jake looked at them, unsure of what to think. This wasn't what he had expected when he had offered them a simple meal, but the sincerity in their eyes made him hesitate. What did they mean by offering him a future? And what kind of help could they possibly give him? "What are you asking?" he finally asked, his voice uncertain. Thyla spoke this time, her voice calm and gentle. "We want to help you achieve more than just surviving. We want to help you live, Jake. Live the life you deserve. Your actions have shown us that there is good in this world, and we wish to share that goodness with you." Jake was silent for a long moment, processing their words. He didn't know what to say, didn't know if he was ready for whatever they were offering. But one thing was clear, this was no longer just about a simple act of kindness. Something had shifted, something had changed in his life forever. And, whether he was ready or not, his life was about to take a turn he never saw coming. As the days passed, Jake found himself unable to shake the feeling that something extraordinary was happening. The alien family had stayed with him for a few days, offering him strange but fascinating glimpses into a world far beyond his own. They showed him their technology, their knowledge, and their way of life, all of which seemed impossibly advanced compared to what Jake had ever imagined. Yet, despite all of this, it was not the technology that amazed him the most. It was the connection they shared with him. They treated him not as a stranger, but as someone whose actions had meant something far greater than he could have ever realized. The first time they took him to their ship, Jake was amazed by its size and complexity. It was a massive craft, sleek and silent as it hovered above the ground, its surface shimmering with energy fields. Inside, the ship was a marvel of technology, with walls that seemed to shift and change as they moved through them, and consoles that responded to every touch. The alien father, whose name was Zeroth, guided Jake through the ship, explaining how each system worked. But it wasn't just the ship that was fascinating. It was the way they spoke to him. Zeroth spoke with a depth of understanding that made Jake feel as though they shared a bond that went beyond mere words. "You have no idea, Jake," Zeroth said one evening as they sat in the observation lounge, looking out at the stars. "Your species has so much potential. We've watched you for a long time, but we've never encountered anyone like you before. You understand the value of kindness, of compassion. That's rare, even among our people." Jake was silent, unsure of how to respond. He had always thought of himself as just an ordinary guy, nothing special. He didn't understand why they were so fascinated by him. "I'm just trying to do the right thing," he finally said, his voice soft. Zeroth smiled, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. "That's the point, Jake. You've shown us something we've been searching for, something our technology can't replicate. And now, we want to offer you something in return." The words hit Jake like a wave. What could they possibly offer him? He had no idea what they meant, but his curiosity was piqued. "We've been looking for someone like you to help us," Zeroth continued. "You've been living in a world that's full of challenges, yet you still have hope, still show kindness, even when it's hard. We need someone who understands the value of compassion, someone who can bridge the gap between our worlds." Jake felt a knot form in his stomach. What was Zeroth talking about? "You want me to do something for you?" he asked, his voice hesitant. Zeroth's eyes softened. "Yes, but not in the way you think. We want you to be a part of something much bigger than yourself. We want you to help us find a way to share the message of kindness and compassion with the rest of the galaxy." Jake blinked in confusion. "I don't understand. I'm just one guy. What can I do?" "You can do more than you realize," Zeroth said, his voice steady. "Your actions, your kindness, have already begun a chain reaction. We've seen it. And now, we want to help you take it further, to help you spread that message to others. You can be a beacon of hope, Jake. A symbol of what can happen when kindness leads the way." Jake sat back, trying to process what Zeroth had just said. A part of him wanted to laugh, to dismiss it all as impossible. But another part of him, the part that had always believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard, felt something stir inside him. Maybe there was more he could do. Maybe he wasn't just some regular guy after all. The thought of joining them, of being a part of something so much bigger than himself, was both thrilling and terrifying. But as he looked at Zeroth, at Thyla, and at Tala, he realized that perhaps this was what he had been waiting for, something to give his life more meaning. Over the next few weeks, Jake trained with them, learning their ways, their language, their technology. It was overwhelming, but it also felt like he was finally discovering his true purpose. And as he worked alongside the alien family, Jake began to see the world in a new light. He realized that kindness, compassion, and understanding were not just things that made life better. They were the keys to unlocking something much bigger, something that could change the entire galaxy. He had no idea what lay ahead, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something that truly mattered. As weeks turned into months, Jake found himself fully immersed in the alien world that had opened up to him. The family, Zeroth, Thyla, and Tala, had become more than just guests in his life. They had become his teachers, guiding him through a journey of self-discovery and a deeper understanding of the universe. Each day brought new challenges, but Jake embraced them all with a newfound purpose. It wasn't just about learning alien technology or mastering their advanced sciences. It was about something far more profound. They weren't just teaching him how to fix their systems or translate their language. They were teaching him how to be the bridge between two worlds, how to spread the message of kindness and compassion that he had unknowingly begun. One afternoon, while working in the ship's engine room, Jake was called to the main deck. When he arrived, Zeroth was standing by the viewports, looking out at the stars with a contemplative expression. "Jake," Zeroth said, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of excitement, "it's time." Jake furrowed his brow. "Time for what?" "It's time for you to begin your mission," Zeroth replied. "You've been training for this, and now the galaxy is ready to hear your message. We've found a way to broadcast your voice across the systems. Your kindness, your example, can inspire others, and we're going to help you share it." Jake's heart raced. He hadn't expected things to move this quickly. He had thought his training would take longer, that he would have more time to prepare. But the reality of the situation began to set in. He wasn't just going to be a small-town mechanic anymore. He was going to be a symbol, a beacon of hope and compassion to countless beings across the galaxy. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew that he couldn't back down. "I'm ready," he said, the words coming out more confidently than he had expected. Zeroth turned to him with a nod of approval. "I knew you would be. This is only the beginning, Jake. The message will spread quickly. You have a gift that others need, a gift that will change the way people see one another." Jake took a deep breath and looked out at the stars, feeling a sense of awe at the vastness of the galaxy before him. He had never been one for big dreams, but now, he couldn't help but feel that his life was about to take on a whole new meaning. Over the next few days, Jake worked with Thyla and Tala to fine-tune the message they would send. It wasn't just a simple broadcast. It was a carefully crafted message designed to resonate with beings of all kinds. They used technology to amplify Jake's voice, to make it sound universal, something that would speak to anyone who heard it, no matter their species or background. As the moment of the broadcast approached, Jake felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He was about to speak to the entire galaxy, and he wasn't sure if he was ready. But he reminded himself of why he was doing this, to share the message of kindness, of selflessness, and compassion that had changed his life. He couldn't turn back now. On the day of the broadcast, everything was set. Jake stood in front of the massive communication console, the ship's AI system ready to transmit his voice across the stars. Zeroth stood beside him, his presence a silent reassurance. "Remember, Jake," Zeroth said softly, "this is not just about your words. It's about your heart. The galaxy will hear not just what you say, but who you are." Jake nodded, his hands steady as he prepared to speak. "I'm ready," he said, more to himself than to Zeroth. With a deep breath, Jake turned to the console and activated the transmission. The system hummed to life, and a moment later, his voice echoed through the ship, resonating with a clarity that sent a shiver down his spine. "Hello, everyone," Jake began, his voice calm but full of sincerity. "I come from a small place, a small world, where I learned that the simplest acts of kindness can change lives. I'm not here to talk about technology or power. I'm here to talk about something far more important. The power of compassion, of reaching out to others, of showing kindness when it seems easiest not to. The universe is vast, and we are all different in many ways, but in the end, we are all connected. We share a common thread, our humanity, our capacity for love and understanding." Jake paused, feeling the weight of his words. He could sense the alien family behind him, their presence a comforting reminder of what he was doing. It's easy to feel small, to think that our actions don't matter. But they do. Every choice we make, every act of kindness, can change the course of someone's life. And together, we can change the galaxy. Jake took another deep breath, his heart racing as he finished. We are all part of something bigger. We are all capable of making the world, a universe, better. So, I ask you, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, to choose kindness, to choose compassion, to choose love. That's how we'll build a future worth living for. Thank you. As Jake finished speaking, there was a long silence, and for a moment, he wasn't sure what to expect. But then, the ship's AI confirmed that the broadcast was successful. The message was out there, echoing across the stars, reaching countless worlds. Jake didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He had done what he was meant to do. He had shared his message, and now, it was up to the galaxy to decide how they would respond. In the weeks following the broadcast, Jake began to notice subtle but profound changes. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, but soon, it became clear that something bigger was happening. The message of kindness, compassion, and unity had begun to spread far beyond the reaches of his small town. The first sign came when he received a message from Zeroth. The alien leader's voice crackled through the communication system, his tone filled with excitement. "Jake," Zeroth said, "we've detected an overwhelming response to your message. Beings from across the galaxy have heard your words and are reaching out. Your message is resonating with them. It's spreading faster than we anticipated." Jake could hardly believe it. He had never imagined that one simple message could have such a far-reaching impact. But as Zeroth continued, Jake's disbelief began to fade into a sense of awe. "We have already received communications from several planetary systems. Some are offering their support, while others are asking for your help. They want to learn from you. Jake, and they want to join in this movement of compassion. Jake felt a surge of emotion. He had no idea that his words, spoken from the heart, could spark such a change. The realization that he was now part of something much bigger than himself was both humbling and overwhelming. "What do we do now?" Jake asked, his voice tinged with excitement. "Now, we take action," Zeroth replied. "We have the opportunity to bring people together in ways that were once thought impossible. We will begin the next phase of your mission." Over the next few days, Jake worked closely with Thyla, Tala, and Zeroth to organize the first intergalactic meeting, a gathering of like-minded beings who had heard the message and were eager to collaborate. The meeting would take place on a neutral planet, one that was easily accessible to all species, and it would serve as a platform for discussions on how to spread the message of kindness and cooperation even further. As Jake prepared for the journey to the meeting, he couldn't help but feel nervous. This was the next step in his journey, and the weight of responsibility was beginning to settle on his shoulders. What if he wasn't ready? What if he couldn't live up to the expectations placed on him? But as he stood in the doorway of the ship, looking back at Thyla and Tala, who had become his closest friends over the past months, he realized that he wasn't alone. He had a team. He had a purpose. And together, they could change the galaxy. The journey to the meeting planet was smooth, the ship cutting through space like a sleek arrow. When they arrived, the planet was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was a place where multiple species coexisted in harmony, where the air was thick with the energy of cooperation. The meeting was set to take place in a massive amphitheater, with representatives from all walks of life gathered to discuss how to further the mission. As Jake stepped into the amphitheater, he was greeted by beings from all over the galaxy. Some had humanoid forms, while others were completely alien, their shapes and sizes beyond his comprehension. But despite the differences, there was an unspoken understanding among them all. They had heard the same message, and they were here for the same reason. They wanted to make the universe a better place. The meeting began, and Jake listened intently as leaders from various species took the stage, sharing their thoughts on how they could work together to spread kindness and compassion. They spoke of trade, of peacekeeping, of sharing resources, but there was one common thread that ran through every conversation: the belief that empathy and understanding could solve many of the galaxy's most pressing problems. As the meeting continued, Jake felt a growing sense of hope. He realized that this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about a collective effort, a movement that transcended species, cultures, and worlds. He wasn't the only one who believed in the power of kindness. The universe had already begun to shift, and together, they could make it a place where compassion was the driving force behind every decision, every action. When it was Jake's turn to speak, he stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. He wasn't just speaking to the leaders in the amphitheater. He was speaking to every being in the galaxy who had heard his message, who had been moved by his words. "When I first spoke to you all," Jake began, his voice steady and clear, "I had no idea what would come of it. I thought I was just doing the right thing, helping those in need. But now, I see something much bigger. This movement, this idea of kindness, it's more than just words. It's a call to action. And I believe that if we all work together, we can create a galaxy where compassion is at the heart of everything we do." His words were met with a resounding applause, and Jake felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was only the beginning. The future was wide open, and there was so much more they could accomplish. As the meeting ended and the representatives began to leave, Jake realized that the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but it was a journey worth taking. The galaxy had heard his message, and now, it was time to see how far it would go. As months passed, the momentum of the movement grew at an incredible rate, surpassing even Jake's wildest expectations. The message of kindness and compassion had taken root across countless worlds, and beings from every corner of the galaxy began to reach out, eager to join the cause. The initial meeting on the neutral planet had been a turning point, but now, the real work began. Jake continued to travel from one world to another, meeting with leaders, activists, and ordinary citizens alike, all of whom were inspired by the message he had shared. Everywhere he went, he saw the same thing. Beings who were ready for change, who were tired of conflict and division, and who longed for a world where empathy ruled. The task was daunting, and the challenges were many. There were still factions within the galaxy that resisted the idea of unity, clinging to their old ways of power and control. But Jake refused to back down. He had seen firsthand the power of a single act of kindness, and now he was determined to prove that even the smallest spark could ignite a galaxy-wide revolution. One particular visit stood out in Jake's mind. It was to a planet that had long been ravaged by war and division. The inhabitants were weary, distrustful of anyone who came from the outside. Jake had been warned that the people there were not receptive to new ideas, that they were suspicious of outsiders and their promises of peace. But Jake was determined. He knew that if he could reach just one person, just one small group, it could make all the difference. The journey to the planet was long and difficult, and when Jake arrived, he was greeted by a cold reception. The people there were hesitant, their faces hardened by years of conflict. But Jake did not retreat. He remained steadfast in his belief that compassion could break through even the toughest barriers. He spent days walking the streets, talking to the citizens, listening to their stories, and sharing his own. Slowly but surely, something began to shift. People started to open up, to see him not as an outsider, but as someone who truly cared. It was not an easy task, but Jake knew that it was worth it. After several weeks of working with the people, a breakthrough came. One afternoon, as Jake was meeting with a small group of community leaders, an elderly woman approached him. She had been watching him from a distance for some time, and now, with a quiet determination, she walked up to him and extended her hand. "You've shown us something we've long forgotten," she said softly. "The power of kindness. It's not easy for us to trust, but you've shown us that there's another way." Jake took her hand, his heart swelling with gratitude. This was the moment he had been working toward, the moment when one person's belief in compassion could spark a change in an entire society. Word of Jake's efforts spread quickly across the planet, and soon, more and more people began to embrace the message. It was not a quick or easy process, but Jake knew that change would come, one person at a time. As Jake left the planet, feeling the weight of the success he had achieved, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. Just a few months ago, he was an ordinary mechanic, living in a small town, never imagining that he could make such a profound impact on the galaxy. Now, he was a symbol of hope, a living testament to the power of kindness and compassion. The galaxy was changing, and Jake was at the center of it all. But he knew that the work was far from over. There were still countless worlds to reach, countless lives to touch. And Jake was ready. He had no idea what the future would hold, but he knew one thing for sure. The message of kindness and compassion would continue to spread, and he would be there, leading the charge, for as long as it took. The journey was just beginning, and the galaxy was waiting. As the movement grew, so did the challenges. Jake, now a symbol of hope and compassion across the galaxy, knew that with each victory came new obstacles. Some planets embraced his message wholeheartedly, while others were more resistant. There were still many worlds ruled by fear and power, where the old ways of domination and control held strong. But Jake didn't falter. He had seen the power of kindness and knew that it could overcome even the deepest divisions. His next mission took him to a planet where peace had been elusive for centuries. The inhabitants were a proud and fiercely independent species, and they had fought for generations to protect their way of life. For them, the idea of unity with other worlds was a threat to their very existence. When Jake arrived, he was met with suspicion. The planet's leaders refused to meet with him, and the people were wary of any outsider, especially someone carrying the message of kindness. But Jake was undeterred. He knew that peace could only be achieved through understanding, and understanding could only come through connection. So he did what he always did. He listened. He spent weeks traveling across the planet, meeting with small communities, listening to their struggles, and sharing his own story. He didn't try to force his message on them. Instead, he showed them, through his actions, that compassion could bridge the gap between differences. Slowly, the walls began to come down. One by one, the people started to see that Jake's message wasn't about taking away their way of life. It was about adding something to it, something that could make their world better, safer, and more connected to the rest of the galaxy. One day, after a particularly difficult meeting, Jake sat in a small cafe, reflecting on the progress he had made. He had met with hundreds of people, and yet, there were still many who refused to listen. He began to wonder if this was really worth it, if his efforts would ever be enough to change the hearts and minds of everyone. But just as he was about to give in to doubt, a familiar face appeared across the room. It was Thyla, her glowing skin brighter than ever under the cafe's soft lighting. She walked over to him, a smile on her face. "You're looking pensive," she said, sitting down beside him. Jake smiled weakly. "I don't know, Thyla. I thought I was making progress, but it feels like there's always more work to do. There are still so many who don't want to listen." Thyla placed a gentle hand on his. "Jake, you've already done so much. The message is out there, and you've changed lives. You can't expect to change everything overnight." Jake looked at her, her words a comfort, but the weight of the galaxy still pressed on his shoulders. "I know, but I feel like it's never enough. I want to do more." Thyla chuckled softly. "You are doing more. One person at a time. That's how change happens. You can't save everyone, but you can help those who are ready to listen. And that's enough." Jake took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. He had been so focused on the big picture, on changing the entire galaxy, that he had forgotten about the small victories, the ones that mattered most. It wasn't about changing everyone's mind. It was about making a difference where he could, in the lives of those who were ready to hear the message. The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings and discussions, each one more challenging than the last. But with Thyla and the others by his side, Jake began to see the fruits of his labor. Slowly, the people of the planet began to embrace the idea of cooperation, of kindness and understanding. They still had their differences, but they were learning to respect one another, to listen, and to find common ground. One evening, as Jake sat on the balcony of his quarters, looking out at the vast expanse of stars, Zeroth joined him. "Jake," he said, "I think it's time." Jake turned to face him, confusion in his eyes. "Time for what?" Zeroth smiled. "It's time for you to return home. The message has spread far and wide, and now it's time for you to rest. You've done more than we ever expected. The galaxy is changing because of you." Jake stared out at the stars, the weight of the moment finally sinking in. He had started this journey as just a man, unsure of his place in the universe. But now, he had become a part of something far greater. He had sparked a revolution of compassion, and he had made the galaxy a better place. It was a humbling thought, but Jake knew that his work was far from over. He may have completed one chapter of his journey, but the next one was already waiting. And wherever his path led, he would continue to spread the message of kindness, one world at a time. As Jake prepared to return home, he couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment, but also an underlying tension. He had changed so much of the galaxy in such a short time, but the feeling of unrest lingered. He had worked so hard to spread a message of kindness, yet there were still those who opposed it, those who feared change, and those who clung to old power structures. But as he stood on the ship's bridge, looking out at the stars, Jake knew that no matter what, his mission wasn't over. His role in the galaxy was far from finished. He had ignited the spark, but the fire of change was still growing, and it would need constant tending. Zeroth and Thyla stood by him, their presence a reminder of the bond they had forged over the months of travel and hardship. "Jake," Zeroth said, his voice as steady and strong as ever, "I know you've made great strides, but there's still more to be done. The message of kindness is spreading, but it will take time for all corners of the galaxy to embrace it." Jake nodded, knowing that Zeroth was right. "I understand," Jake replied, "but it's hard not to feel like I should be doing more. I want to see it all happen now, but I know that's not realistic." Thyla smiled, her calm demeanor always a grounding force for him. "You've already done more than most could ever dream of," she said gently. "You've given people hope, Jake. You've shown them a different way to live, to connect with one another. That's not something that happens overnight. It's a long road, but it's a road worth traveling." Jake looked at her, grateful for her words. He hadn't realized just how much he had changed until now. When he had first set out on this journey, he had only wanted to help a few people, but now, his actions had impacted entire worlds. "I just wish I could do more," he admitted, his voice tinged with frustration. "I don't want to leave it unfinished." "You won't leave it unfinished," Zeroth reassured him. "You've planted the seed, Jake. The galaxy is changing because of you, but it's not up to one person to change the whole universe. Your message will grow, and others will take it up and carry it forward. What you've started is just the beginning." Jake felt a deep sense of pride in Zeroth's words, but also a lingering doubt. Was he ready to step back and allow others to carry the torch? Was his work truly finished, or was there more he still had to do? As they prepared to depart for his home planet, Jake's thoughts were scattered. The journey had been long, and the galaxy was full of both opportunity and danger. But the weight of the message he carried, and the lives it had touched, kept him focused. The ship made its way toward Earth, the familiar sight of the blue planet growing larger in the viewport. Jake had been away for so long that he wasn't sure what to expect when he returned. Would he still be the same man who had left? Would the people he had left behind understand the changes he had experienced? The questions lingered in his mind as the ship touched down, and when the doors opened, Jake stepped out into the world he had once known. The streets were still the same, but Jake was different. The familiar sights and sounds of Earth no longer felt like home in the same way they once did. He had been transformed by the experiences he had lived, and now, as he stood in the midst of it all, he realized that there was no going back. But that was okay. He wasn't meant to stay the same. He had done what he set out to do. He had shared the message of kindness and compassion, and now it was time for others to carry it forward. As Jake walked through the streets of his town, he noticed something remarkable. People smiled at him in ways they hadn't before. Strangers made eye contact, offered a friendly nod, and some even stopped to chat with him as if they knew him. The small acts of kindness he had shown had started a ripple effect that was spreading in ways he couldn't have imagined. Jake wasn't sure if he would ever fully grasp the magnitude of the changes he had set in motion, but as he looked around at the people he passed, he realized that the galaxy had already begun to change. And even though the journey wasn't over, and there was still much work to do, Jake knew that he had played his part. He had given the galaxy a message of hope, of connection, and of love. And now, it was up to the galaxy itself to carry that message forward, to continue the work that he had started, one act of kindness at a time. As Jake stood in the familiar streets of his town, looking around at the subtle changes in the people and the atmosphere, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The faces he passed seemed different now, warmer, more open. The small gestures of kindness he had shared were taking root, not just in the galaxy, but in his own world as well. He had given everything to this cause, his time, his energy, his very essence, and now he could see the fruits of his labor blossoming all around him. But even with this newfound hope, Jake knew that the road ahead was still long. There were still those who resisted change, those who clung to old ideologies and power structures, unwilling to embrace the idea of a united, compassionate galaxy. But Jake had learned that no movement, no revolution, was ever easy. It took time, persistence, and the willingness to face the hardest challenges. The small victories mattered most, those quiet moments when someone took the time to listen, to be kind, to make the world a little better. As Jake walked, his thoughts wandered to the people he had met on his journey. There was Zeroth, whose wisdom had been a constant guiding force. Thyla, whose steady presence had always been a source of comfort. And Tala, whose curiosity and optimism had reminded Jake why he started this mission in the first place. He thought about all the worlds he had visited, the lives he had touched, and the message he had spread. But he knew it wasn't just about him. The movement wasn't about one person. It was about something far bigger. It was about the idea that kindness could change the world, that compassion could break down barriers, and that every small act of goodness rippled outward, spreading across the galaxy. And though Jake's journey had brought him to places he never imagined, he understood now that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with infinite possibilities, but the message of hope, of connection, would continue to spread. He didn't need to be there every step of the way. He had planted the seed, and it was growing. He had created a foundation, and others would build upon it. As Jake stood at the edge of the town square, a sense of peace settled over him. He wasn't done, not yet. There was still so much to do, so much to learn, but for the first time, Jake felt ready. He understood now that the journey of kindness, the mission of compassion, would never truly end. It would continue on, passed from one person to the next, carried through the hearts of those who believed in it. As the sun set on the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the town, Jake took a deep breath and smiled. The galaxy had changed, and in turn, he had changed. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Kindness was the way forward, and Jake was ready to walk that path for as long as it took.